Hi everyone, it's Deborah Irene, and it's Monday, April 6th. I'm outside here on my back patio today going live with you because I wanted to show you a couple of things. Let me tell you a little something about myself in case you don't know. I am a little citified, but I'm also a little bit country, and I'll read you a story a little bit later that will explain that a little bit better. I do live and work in the city, and if you can hear background noise here, it's because I live on a very busy thoroughfare, not very far from my office. And so that's the background noise you hear. There's still people coming and going, even though we're supposed to be in isolation. But I'm on my back patio, and the little country part of me has come out since I've had to stay home recently. So I want to show you something. I'll walk here into my backyard. I have lived in this house since late last summer, and when I moved in here, I did appreciate this little back porch I've got, but there's something I did not know existed, and so I want to turn this around and show you. Look at these beautiful tulips. I just had no idea they were planted there at the side of my house, and I got so excited when I was driving down that street from the grocery store the other day and saw those beautiful flowers in my back. And then the other thing that I want to show you is this community garden that I've talked about before. Now, I don't have much of a green thumb. My sisters have a lot more of a green thumb than I do. But I want to show you what I did yesterday. I got my own little plot here, and I have cleared it out because I want to grow some tomatoes. I still have a few weeds to pull out, but you can't imagine how full of weeds that this was. So I'm a little bit excited for the country side of me to come out, and I'll show you those later on this summer if it's successful. So back here again, I'm gonna walk back over here to my house and explain a little bit more to you about the piece of me that's a little bit country and a little bit city. So it's a little breezy here in Kansas City today. I'm gonna walk inside my kitchen. I'm gonna tell you a story about my Aunt Lizzie, who was my mother's oldest sister, and she was a special lady, and her husband. I can see that my hair is a little messed up. That's okay. But I'm going to sit here in my kitchen because if you went over to Aunt Lizzie's house, that's where she would probably sit you down at, is in her kitchen to talk to you. So let's have just a little conversation here about my book, Someday I Will Write. I'm going to read to you today a story that I wrote, and it is in the section of my book called A Time to Remember. Don't need this scarf on in the house, so we'll take that off. It's actually chapter 2 of my book. A House, a Home is the name of this chapter. A house can be a house, or a house can be a home. A house is made of wood, brick, or stone, but a home is made of memories, stories, and love. I am writing today about the latter, a home. I remember when I first met this home. It was my Aunt Lizzie and Uncle Hike's home. I remember looking at this picture frequently growing up in California as Mother talked about the two of them. You're wondering probably what picture. If you saw the picture I posted earlier here of the magazine, it's that first picture there of Aunt Lizzie and Uncle Hike sitting outside their home. So that's the picture I'm referring to. This picture was taken in the early days of their home ownership. They moved into their new house on New Year's Day, 1937. Over the next 25 years, by the time I first visited, the two of them transformed this into a much adored home. Hi, Cousin Philip. Good to see you. When we moved to the Midwest in the mid-60s, this home became like my grandma's home. You see, Aunt Lizzie was my mother's oldest sister who was 29 years her senior. So my Aunt Lizzie was more like Grandma Lizzie. This was not like other houses we had left behind in modern Southern California. It was located 6 miles into the country, off the highway on a dirt road, and up a rocky driveway. There was a well a few feet from the back door that yielded fresh, cold water. I learned the meaning of drawing water as we lowered the bucket down into the well and pulled it back up by the attached rope. There was an outhouse instead of a bathroom, and a rooster who attacked you as you walked to the facility. You had to run fast to protect your legs from his painful pecks. I don't know why he couldn't stay in the chicken coop and keep the hens happy. Which brings up another thing. Eggs were collected from a real-life hen house rather than buying them at the grocery store. Then there was the cow that Uncle Hike patiently tried to teach me to milk. I think her name was Bessie. I either didn't have the strength or didn't have the technique, but he always managed to fill the bucket full every morning and every night. He delivered it to Aunt Lizzie, who knew how to get the most out of each bucket. We had fresh whole cream for coffee, and she taught me to churn butter. Sometimes we had buttermilk, and in the summer we made homemade ice cream. After we milked the cow, we shucked corn so that mean old rooster and the hens would have something to eat. Sometimes I simply sat and watched Uncle Hike whittle away his worries. That wasn't something I saw in Southern California either. Each year, Uncle Hike had his watermelon patch, or hid his watermelon patch, to keep the brazen teenagers from vandalizing it. He would say, "You know, I wouldn't care if they only took a watermelon and ate it, but they made a game of it to find the patch and destroy every melon." Not funny. I remember that I tagged along on strolls of the property and neighboring property to search for arrowheads. Occasionally we found one, but I think Uncle Hike had already confiscated most of them, judging from the number he had mounted in frames all over the walls of the home. When we returned, I helped Aunt Lizzie prepare lunch, and then she showed me how to make a peach or apple pie from scratch. But my favorite thing to do with her was to wake up early before anyone else and help her fix breakfast for everyone who had slept over the night before. Biscuits, gravy, eggs, pancakes, sausage, bacon, the works. She did most of the fixing, and I usually set the table. And what a beautiful table she could spread. Uncle Hike had his special spot at the table with plenty of room to hike one leg up on the chair, rest his elbow on it, and perch his coffee in the same hand. Have you figured out how he acquired his nickname? A brisk breeze blew in from the bedroom and made up for the lack of air conditioning. After dark, you could hear June bugs slam against the screens, crickets chirp, and various other critters that I could never identify. And of course, in the morning, we awakened to the crow of that aggressive rooster and the elegant singing of the birds. Uncle Hike taught me to listen to one in particular whistling, wet year, announcing it would rain that day. You know, I want to back up just a minute and say something else that's not in the book here. I said after dark, you could hear June bugs slam against the screens. Okay, so this was probably in the 1960s. When I read this story to my cousin, really my Aunt Mavis, she was more like my aunt, who was Aunt Lizzie's youngest daughter, she laughed and had to tell me another story because when the house was first built, they didn't have screens. And she would tell me how they went through the house when it was time to go to bed and how they would try to get out all of the flies out of the house. And there were a couple of funny stories to do with that. Now, I don't have time to tell you that story today, and it's not in the book. But it was interesting after I wrote this story to learn other things. Please don't mistake the lack of a few modern conveniences as uncomfortable. Aunt Lizzie decorated beautifully and kept the home spotless. I loved her white curtains. Flowers and shrubs were abundant in the yard close to the home. She was the epitome of Proverbs 31. I'm going to add a little bit something else here. You know, she knew how to make a little money for their family on the side. And my mother would tell me stories of how she would sometimes sew for people or whatever that they could grow. If they had extra, like their watermelons, she would sell those. I don't have this in my story here, but I remember one time we were taking her home from the store. She didn't drive, so she always had to depend on someone else to take her to the store. So we're driving her home on that dirt road one time, and she had my mother stop. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but something like, "Oh, stop, look at those greens." I couldn't believe it. She got out of the car and went over in the ditch, and what I thought was weeds, she cut to take home and cook. Now, the amazing thing is, to me, you know, here's the city girl coming out, but she's a country woman, and she knew what was edible and what was not edible. And for her to find these greens along the side of the road growing in a ditch or off the other side of the ditch, she was thrilled to get those. And so she cut those down, got back in the car, and fixed them for dinner that night. She was the epitome of Proverbs 31. She did it all. Many of these reflections were created with others. You see, I spent most of my time there on the weekends traveling up from Arkansas with my mother and sisters, and my cousin Lee, more like my Uncle Lee, brought his family down from Kansas City. We all converged there for the weekends until we all ultimately moved to the area. About the time there was much excitement with plans for indoor plumbing, running water, and a bathroom for the home. And now I'm remembering something else I have to tell you. Okay, that bathroom. I remember there was so much discussion about that right when they were getting ready to put the bathroom into the home. And I remember being there during these conversations. And Aunt Lizzie's will prevailed on that. There was discussion about putting it on a piece of what they called their back porch. The problem with taking up part of the back porch, the way you accessed the bathroom was through one of the bedrooms. It was a 2-bedroom house. And so you would have to go through that bedroom to use the restroom. And the logical place to put the bathroom seemed to be in this huge closet that was between the 2 bedrooms so that it would be accessible to both bedrooms. But Aunt Lizzie did not want to do that because she had a cellar or a basement in the house. And I remember her saying, if we put that bathroom in between the 2 bedrooms, I will never get to access my cellar through the house because she, of course, the entrance to the cellar was outside, and someday she hoped that she could get an inside staircase. And so if the bathroom went in that closet, that would take away that opportunity. So her wish prevailed, and the bathroom was built on that back porch, accessible to the one bedroom. I have shared my memories, but everyone in my extended family could write their memories because Aunt Lizzie was mother, grandma, great-grandma, aunt, and great-aunt to many. It was the place to go for Easter, 4th of July, Memorial Day, and any and every ordinary day. No need for notice to drop in. There was so much life in that home, and as goes the circle of life, so there was death. This home that brought so much life to our family was the passing place for some as well. Amy, our matriarch, Aunt Mert, Grandpa's sister, Uncle Hike's sister, and my grandma, Rhoda Margaret, whom we called Mag. And finally, Uncle Hike. They were brought home to transition to their heavenly home. After Uncle Hike passed away and Aunt Lizzie moved into town, Cousin Lee and his friendly wife, Charlene, moved into the homestead. She made everyone feel loved and special. They carried on many of the same traditions with their family. Charlene continued to make this house a home after Aunt Lizzie and Lee both passed on. It became Granny's house to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Every Sunday, her entire family converged the way we had 40 years ago and 3 generations earlier. Then, without warning, 1 year ago, Granny slipped away from us. Such unexpected loss and sorrow. The family still assembles, seeking that at-home comfort and security. They gather on Sundays, clinging to that home, the memories, the love, the unity. And I wonder who will make memories for the next generation. As the lights are turned off, will we hear, "Good night, Grandpa. Good night, Grandma. Good night, sister." And you thought that originated with the Waltons? No, that was my cousin Rita. And then this poem is at the end. Turn off the lights, lock the door. No one lives here anymore. No more kisses, no more hugs. No more spoken words of love. Tears start falling, one by one, trying not to come undone. Whisper goodbye, shut the door. No one lives here anymore. By Stephanie Coleman Bradshaw, 4th generation. The home awaits the next generation. And as I do with all of my stories, let me tell you when this was written and a little bit more about the publishing of it. A condensed version of this blog, which was originally written in October of 2011, was published in the August-September 2016 issue of Country Magazine. This right here. And it was titled, you can see there, Heart of a Home. My extended family loved seeing this in a national magazine, and many had similar recollections. My third cousin, Stephanie, Aunt Lizzie's great-granddaughter, wrote the poem around the same time that I wrote this story. It was a perfect piece to add at the end. This is one of my very favorite stories in my book, Someday I Will Write. And it was thrilling to have an excerpt of that in Country Magazine. And I know my family extended family really enjoyed seeing that. So you see, I'm a little bit country and I'm a little bit citified. And right now, having to stay in, I'm feeling my country roots come out in me. And I hope that I get some tomatoes out of this. So I'll keep you posted. This is Deborah Irene, and you take good care and stay safe.